Welcome to AP Psychology. In this video, we will explain internal and external factors of perception and explore how cultural expectations influence perception. I'm Ms. Flitter from West Bend East High School. Let's begin reviewing by referring back to topic 1.6. Sensation involves how an organism receives stimuli and information from the surrounding world, such as what we see on the right: vision, hearing, smell, taste, touch. Perception, the focus of this video, involves the active process of organizing and interpreting sensory information. Perception brings meaning to sensation. A bitter taste becomes, wow, that's strong coffee. A loud noise becomes, that's my alarm clock, I better get up. Perception is influenced in two general ways. Bottom up relies on external sensory information. It involves the basic elements or features to build a perception. We go from individual elements to the whole. The whole process is supported by the research on feature detectors. Top-down relies on internal, prior expectations. It uses previous knowledge and experience to fill in the gaps and complete perception. It works in the opposite way, moving from the whole to the parts. For example, have you ever had bad reception, but you can still make out what someone's saying on the phone? These complementary processes occur simultaneously, and we use both on a regular basis. Can you figure out what this is? Often when viewing an ambiguous image, you use bottom up to assemble the individual features. I now tell you this is a letter, and you interact with it differently. Next time, because of top down, you're going to recognize it immediately as the letter X. You draw on experience to make a meaningful perception. Reading relies on both bottom-up and top-down processing. Can you read this first sentence? I hope you do well on the AP exam. The light became a neural message sent from the eye to the brain, where the shape and the angles of the letters were interpreted. But the brain is also imposing meaning based on knowledge. We're studying together for the AP exam. Bottom-up brought the sensation of the actual letter shapes to the brain. Top-down uses your experience and expectations of context to recognize the words. You're also likely to easily read this second sentence as the cat, recognizing the identical middle symbol as the letter H in the first case on the left and the letter A in the other on the right. Knowledge and expectations helped you. Let's look at an example. What do you see? Do you see the number 13 or the letter B? This ambiguous stimulus has been used in research to demonstrate how context and expectations can influence what people see. In one study, if participants were shown numbers first, the red vertical line, most saw this as the number 13. But if shown letters first, the blue horizontal line, most saw it as the letter B. Two internal factors filter our perceptions. First, their schemas, our frameworks for thinking, and they'll be discussed again in topic 2.2. These mental representations help us organize and understand our world. They're the basis for top-down processing. Through experience, we form schemas to organize and interpret unfamiliar information and help guide our perception. There's also perceptual set, which is a readiness to perceive something in a particular way or have an expectation for a stimulus. They work automatically. If you just noticed you were speeding and see a flashing light, you probably automatically jump to the conclusion you're being pulled over. Both schemas and perceptual sets are internal factors that filter our perceptions of the world, as was done with that ambiguous figure. External factors can also filter our perception of the world. Context is when a stimulus can produce different perceptions based on the environment. Remember the cat? The middle characters were the same, but the surrounding letters and knowledge of the English language shaped your expectations. You may have problems recognizing your teacher when you see them somewhere you don't expect. They don't look different, but the context makes you unsure. Culture can also influence perception. People from different cultures may perceive the physical world differently. Learning influences perception. Let's practice the skill of explaining how cultural expectations apply to a specific example. The Muller-Lyer illusion is when two lines of the same length appear as different lengths, like what we see on the left side. Why? Although there's no one explanation that can fully account for this illusion, it tends to involve how the brain interprets size and distance cues. The carpeted world hypothesis proposes that one line, on the bottom or blue, represents the outside of a building, versus the other line, on the top or red, represents the inside of a building. Cross-cultural studies have found people, especially Americans, who have experience with a world dominated by straight lines, right angles, and rectangular rooms are more susceptible to this illusion. Those who do not have as much exposure to rectangular buildings, such as the Zulu people in South Africa, are less susceptible to the illusion. These studies suggest that our perceptions are influenced by our cultural circumstances. It is also important to note that the sample of American undergraduates was the outlier in this case and represented the extreme end of the distribution that included multiple cultures. There would be an exaggerated estimate if only Americans were studied, an important lesson in cross-cultural research. Let's look at another cross-cultural study. Which two items belong together? Starting from left to right, there's a chicken, there's a cow, and there's grass. Psychologists have found cultural differences in the way we think and process information. In general, Eastern cultures process information holistically, based on context and relationships. Children from Eastern cultures tend to group the cow and grass because the cow eats grass. In general, Western cultures process information analytically, focusing on objects and forming categories. Children from Western cultures tend to group the chicken and cow because both are animals. Let's look at a final cross-cultural study. The research hypothesis was people from Japan, an Eastern culture, focus more and have better recall for objects in the background of this scene than people from the United States, a Western culture. Researchers had participants come to the lab and watch an animated short video of this underwater scene. The three large fish, mostly to the right, are considered the foreground, the focus. The plants on the left and the other objects on the top and the bottom are considered the background. After they viewed the video, they were asked to describe what they had seen. Trained coders rated the number of statements they made from the scene, such as foreground and background objects. Now that we've learned about the basics of this experiment, let's look at these graphs. The skill of data interpretation is being applied to specific content. This skill will come back and be seen in other units as well. Consistent with other cross-cultural findings, the Japanese participants commented more on the background than the American participants, as seen on the left side of this graph. The orange bar is greater than the green bar. The Japanese, on average, also commented more on the non-moving objects, as seen on the right side of the graph. But notice the middle column. There was no significant difference in how much people from each culture commented on the three large fish in the foreground. The conclusion is that what we perceive every day is influenced by our culture. Those from Japan were more likely to focus on background. This is connected to the observation that different cultures think in different ways. What should we take away? Both internal and external factors influence perception. Bottom-up relies on external, while top-down processing relies on internal factors. Internal factors such as schemas and perceptual sets help filter our perceptions. External factors such as context, experience, and culture also filter our perceptions. Thank you for watching. I look forward to seeing you in our next AP Daily video.